great. It's so good to see you.
You too. I'm so excited. How old are the kids now?
Marcus just turned 12 and my daughter turned 9 in December. So,
Oh my God, that's
I can't,
amazing. That
I
just
mean, he is just a couple of inches shorter than me. So
oh, because
he's
you're tall. You're tall, tall. Like I don't know how, but you're probably like, why are you like 5'10" or
I'm
something? Or
10. So he's almost 5'7". He's like
Mhm.
5.5. We just went to his pediatric check. I
He
remember
has,
such a peanut when he was born.
I know, and he hasn't even hit the spurt yet.
Not yet. So he was 6 pounds, 6 ounces when he was born. So I'm like, maybe he's gonna be 6'6".
Oh, that'd be so cute. 6'6" again, right?
Yes. But
That's,
yeah, it's been that long. That's why this is so special to be able to talk to you about that experience again.
wow. And are you still in pediatrics too?
I am. So I am a neonatologist here
Awesome.
in Raleigh. And we were actually up in New York because we moved to North Carolina, but we were just up in New York the last few days for the US Open.
Exciting. Exciting.
Hmm.
That's amazing. So let's get into it. So as a neonatologist, you had seen births before, right? So you came with that.
And
Mhm.
I, I delivered, I don't know if you remember, at the hospital where I was doing my
Yep.
training
Yep.
with OBs that I worked with regularly.
Right. So you weren't the usual client of mine seeing births for the first time, really not knowing anything. You really knew a ton, a ton.
Or I thought I knew a ton. I mean, I knew a ton from the other side.
Yeah, it's totally different. Like whenever I work with birth folks, they still have a lot to learn. To see a birth is very different than to give birth yourself, for sure.
Well, and remember, my husband is also in medicine. So
Yeah.
he had attended births and his dad was an OBGYN. So,
Yeah.
he also thought he knew something about the birth experience.
Right. So how did you see birth before you had experienced it as a parent?
Well, to tell you the truth, for me, a lot of birth was everything that could go wrong because
Right.
that's the world that I lived in.
Mhm.
Um, so part of the reason that I wanted to have as much support as possible is because I knew that I was going to be very stressed out because I know absolutely everything that could go wrong
Right.
every stage of the journey. And even pregnancy was difficult because I had a lot of babies I was taking care of that, when I hit 23 weeks, I'm like, oh my goodness, the baby in here is the size of the baby out here, all the way through. Um, so I did a couple of different things just to lower my own anxiety level. But you were by far the best decision that we made as a couple. And we
Yeah.
still talk to this day. And I still advise my friends, who are having children or people that I know. Um, because we did like a hypnobirthing class, which being like, let's just go on a weekly date to,
Yeah.
Korea and get some great Korean food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hypnobirthing was fun to do, but it really like went out the window as soon as contractions really
Yeah.
started.
Yeah. I find that technique to be so hit and miss without any pattern. Like I
Yeah,
don't see like it works for a certain type of mom or not. It's just so hit and miss. Like sometimes it works,
yeah.
but I see it fail a lot too. I don't like if you want to try it. But yeah.
I mean, it was fun. I mean,
Yeah.
it's much like just can you get yourself into a meditative state? I think a lot of it depends too on your partner and being able to like really lock it in um and relax. But it it didn't work for us.
I think it's also just how the birth goes. Like if the progress is like a slower, easier, and I think technically now that I've been doing it a long time, if the mother is more effaced, the contractions don't hurt as much. So if you're starting really effaced, like 100% effaced in 2, then there's just not going to be as much resistance. So I think it's just that, you
Which
know.
makes sense actually to hear you say that, because I don't know if you remember, but I never broke my water.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember like I was like, what if I break my water at work, like while I'm at a
You
delivery?
won't, you
What if,
won't, you don't,
like,
yeah.
none of that happened. That, it happened like the second, right before I started pushing.
Right.
Um, and they had to rupture the sac for both of my kids because that's just not the kind of labor that I have.
Yeah.
And I just remember, I'm like, why does my back hurt so much? And you were like, oh, I think you're having back labor. And I was like, what is that? I didn't learn about that. Why are my contractions like these weird double contractions? And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a thing. And I'm like, that's so evil.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Coupling. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't learn about that in medical school.
Yeah, it happens. Happens. And sometimes it has a tail. It has a thing I could call a tail, it just won't end.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then the one starts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I remember Ed, so you came over to the apartment, like we called you and you come over, and Ed's like, I think it's time to go to the hospital. And you were like, I don't think we're there yet. He's like, what do you mean? And he didn't want to tell me that that's what he told. I think I'd been in labor for a few hours at that point. I was just like, I don't know. This seems pretty intense. And then we got to the hospital and they were like, well, you could go back home if you want. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But all of those things and all of the support you provided, not just me. I mean, when you're in it, and I think that's one thing that I realized when I was in it, I was the one that was going through it. So, it was going to happen no matter what, no matter who's there. But I think the support you provided for my husband, for Ed, was, I mean, priceless.
Thank you.
As a type A surgeon, to see your wife, going through all this and not knowing what to do. And, as soon as all of the hypnobirthing techniques had been exhausted in the first 5 minutes and none of that was working.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to call Maisha now. And I'm like, it's 2 a.m. And you came over and you had a smile on your face and you're like, okay, let's do this. Let's get on the exercise ball. Like, what?
Yeah.
Pressure to your, you're showing him things to do as well. That I think was just immensely helpful in getting him through the night.
So how much time, I didn't pull up my history. I have histories and everyone, but how much time at home?
So
Like,
I think I went into labor like right after dinner. So maybe 8 o'clock at night. And I think we called you around maybe midnight or 1 a.m.
classic, yeah.
And we went to the hospital probably at like 6 or 7 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And then my son was born at 3:42 in the afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as I recall, it was smooth, like really smooth, and it was all fine. Like that's how I
I'm
see
so
it.
glad you thought of it though.
Like easy, smooth. Like you didn't have
Routine.
complications, right? Like I don't think you had any, there were no complications.
His presentation, I think he was a little bit, like his head was turned a little bit. And I only know this because I worked with Dr. Brasner, my OB. I had been in so many deliveries with her. I knew her stern face. And at
Yeah.
one point she was like, you need to push. You need to,
Right, right.
I mean, I was fortunate. As soon as they ruptured my water, like I only pushed for maybe a few minutes. That
Mm-hmm.
was for my daughter too. Like that, but
Right.
she like, he had a D cell and she was like, you need to get him out right now. I was like,
Mm.
okay. And with that push came out. But that was the only sort of from a neonatologist mom standpoint. I was like, oh my goodness, okay, I have to do this. I have to get this out. Um, but yeah, and then you were there to take all the pictures and all of that. But I would not have one picture of us if you hadn't been there because Ed
Mm.
did not have the presence of mind at that point. It was, you're just like,
Yeah.
as he describes it, and I almost wish he could be a part of this. He's like, kind of like going to war.
It is, especially on your first.
Said, for you, it was like going to war. I feel like I was the one that gave birth, right?
Right, 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 right.
But he said it was intense like that.
It is. Because I find like guys ask me, they really want a structured plan, and I really can't tell you. They're like, so
No,
when it breaks, so when we're gonna go to the hospital, right? And I'm like, I don't know.
it's not like the movies.
Yeah, like anything they'll ask me, my answer is I don't know. Like when we meet, I don't know. Like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, yeah, I don't know when we're gonna go, when we're gonna stay, when we're gonna I don't know.
Like every birth is totally different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all I know is now. All I know is right now. Like I'll say right now, I think we should stay home. Or right now we should go to the hospital. All I have is now, you know.
It's
That's
so,
it.
and you really, you don't know. And it's now that I've been a parent for a little while, I'm like, it's just preparing you for the rest of parenting
It's
because
parenting day one. Yeah.
you don't know every day. You just need to try to live in the present.
Right,
Like,
right.
and the the more disappointment there might be on the other end of that plan.
But still have a plan and a goal. Like it's fine to have a plan and a goal, but don't beat yourself up if things don't go as planned, you
Yeah.
know?
And that was one thing and with my first, I was really, and I still practice a lot of yoga and I meditate. And I said, I'm going to try to do this without an epidural. And
Mm-hmm.
part of my initial, like, let's see if I can do this without an epidural. And Ed was like, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm flexible, but like, let's try
Right.
it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And I got to the hospital when they said, why don't you go walk around Central Park? And I'm like, I could barely, like
Yeah.
that ride, getting in
Yeah.
the elevator and in the,
Yeah.
like, that's really hard. I'm
Yeah.
not going in the elevator to go outside to walk around Central Park.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was exhausted and I'd been up all
The
night.
fatigue is crazy. The fatigue alone.
I mean, that was more, I think, more than the sensation, of contraction. The fatigue is what got me in the end. And my
Brutal.
said,
Brutal. Mhm.
yeah, why don't you just get an epidural and take a nap? And I said, that sounds amazing. Like a
Yeah.
nap sounds
Yeah.
like the greatest thing on earth. So I
It is.
did. An
Yeah.
epidural took, I think it was like a 2 hour nap. I
Mm-hmm.
woke, pushed, and I was able to enjoy Marcus's birth. Like it was just really nice because I best nap of my life to this day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. Definitely.
So yeah, having the
Mhm.
I think would be if there's anything to share or anything I learned from my birth experience was having the flexibility of, okay, you might have that plan. Like I had hypnobirthing. I was like, I can do this. I had meditation, I had all that stuff. But for me, like you say, in that moment, the
Yeah.
right decision was to get an epidural, and
Yeah.
and that was fine, and everybody was healthy, and everything was
Mm-hmm.
me. Also, at the end of the day, I just whatever needed to be done to have a healthy
Of
baby,
course.
you know.
Yeah. Epidurals can be really great sometimes. Yes, there's risks and harms and da 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 da. But sometimes, man, they get you express to 10. I love that express to 10 one. Mom sleeps, oh, time to push. I love when that happens.
Oh, it was amazing. I think it was like because we did a lot of work beforehand, right? Like we,
Yeah. Like if you don't have it too early, and that's really defined that day, what's too early. I can't tell you advance what's too early. But I find whenever mom's like, I'm done, whatever that is for her, when she gets to the I'm done point and then has one, it's good.
yeah, it worked really well. And
Mm.
it's funny with my second birth, I wanted the epidural, like, on the earlier regular side.
Right?
And when we got to the hospital and they had my lab work and all this stuff, they're
That it
like,
takes a while.
yeah, they were like, you're already 9 centimeters.
Yep.
I
Yep.
said, no. So again, you can have a plan
Right. And there you go.
and you get it done.
I definitely tell all my second timers, like, maybe you'll get an epidural, maybe you won't. Like, if they were hoping, I'm like, I'm gonna be honest with you, it might go too fast. Like, it really might. So we'll see. We'll try, but we'll see.
What was funny with my daughter, no one believed I was in active labor. Like I went in, I got checked that day, and
Mhm.
they were, oh, you're only 3 centimeters. I was like, 3 centimeters, like this
That's
is
a
real.
lot.
These
Yeah.
sensations are real. And they're like, no, it's just Braxton Hicks. They put me on the monitor. They're like, no. I'm like, no, I know how long it took me to get to even 4 centimeters last time. But like for me, like this is real. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, they sent me home.
Mm-hmm.
These are real contractions, but I would only have them if I was standing up.
Okay.
If I laid down, then they would go away. But if I
Mm-hmm.
stood up there, so then my husband came home and I'm like, call the OB. Because whenever I stood up to go to the bathroom or something, I like couldn't. And my OB heard what I sounded like when I stood up and he's like, oh, you should
Oh,
probably
yeah, we hear you. Oh, it's that. Oh, yeah.
oh, that. And then even again in the car, like not great. So I got to the hospital and I was like 7 centimeters or something. And this was at 6 o'clock and I had been at the doctor at 3 o'clock.
Yeah. Yeah.
My other thing is like listen to your body, even if your
Mhm.
doctors don't
Yeah.
believe or don't, you know, you know yourself better than anyone. And it's better to just go get checked again, even if
Yeah.
you were there a little while ago.
Yeah.
Daughter was born probably 2 hours after I got to the hospital.
Amazing.
Hmm.
I love it. I love it. So you
Yeah.
had the birth you wanted the first time on the second one, right? The all natural.
Yep. It happens sometimes when you don't even expect it. I was
I
just happy it didn't happen in the car.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I haven't ever had a car birth. Knock on wood, I don't have one. Yeah.
those are a little scarier. Or the parking lot birth. I mean, we have it all.
Oh
The
yeah.
births.
It's just like icky. It seems icky. No offense to anyone that had a car birth, but I'm just like, I don't want the mess. And yeah.
No. Well, and that's the other amazing thing that I don't think people realize about having a doula is that we got back to the apartment and Ed was like, "Oh my goodness, the the apartment's like back to normal," because
Uh-huh.
it's a little bit like a war zone while you.
Birth makes a mess. Your house gets trashed. Yeah. I
Yeah,
try to clean that all up. You don't need to come home with a brand new baby and the
yeah, and things from like days ago, right? Because it's
all the
not
cups,
like you go
just
to
like
the
10 cups
yeah,
out, half-eaten sandwich,
yeah.
trash, pads, clothes, laundry, always a lot of cups. A lot of cups, a smoothie crusting away.
Hmm. So that was incredible coming home as new parents. And
Mhm.
my son was born July 2nd. So, of course, like right after July 4th weekend. Um, And we came home, I think, yeah, we probably came home on July 4th, and
Mm-hmm.
it was at least a good place to start.
Yeah,
I was trying to
nice.
figure out how to get the car seat out and all of
Oh,
the things, setting up the pack and play.
oh, those pack and plays.
They'll get you.
All that stuff is tricky. All that stuff is a lot to deal with a brand new baby and assembly instructions, and you're terrified and sleep deprived and got a
Uh-huh.
baby and trouble breast. Oh my God, girl. Yeah, the first 3 to
That
5 days.
Yeah, that was another really helpful, your postpartum visits, like just bringing a little sanity into the insanity that is the first few weeks after having a baby.
I mean, I worked when I was a teenager, I worked in hotels that have childcare, right? And I quickly learned I don't really like kids, honestly, but I loved infants, right? So I had taken care of like a couple hundred in my teen because I worked there 15, 16, 17. And I could like feed the baby, change the baby, put them down. Feed the baby, change. When I had my own babies, it didn't work. It did
No,
not work.
it doesn't work. They don't listen to you.
I have done this hundreds of times on all different baby personalities. Easy peasy. So I was thinking of you because you had told me that hilarious story. You being a actual neonatologist pediatrician.
Oh, yes.
Tell that story when you came home with your son.
Yeah. So, I we'd been home for a few weeks because I had recently, I think it was my first call back or something, where I was working overnight in the hospital. And my husband, again, he's a doctor as well. Um, calls me in a panic. There were two times, but this time it was, he sends me a video, and this is at, I don't know, in the middle of the night.
Right, right.
That's when things happen. And it's a video of my son on the bed, like breathing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like literally just like breathe. Babies do this periodic breathing thing where they might like breathe a
That,
little fast and then kind
yeah,
of pause and then breathe a little fast and then but while they're sleeping.
right.
And my husband was like, I don't know. I think he's like breathing weird. Maybe he has a virus or something. And I was like, whatever you do. I'm like, that is normal. I think that's just periodic breathing. I hear him. He's fine. Whatever you do, do not bring him to the emergency room. Like, whatever.
Yes.
Because, you can pick up a lot of bad things in the ER. I'm like, I think he's fine. Just, keep him in the room or whatever. And then I was like, why is he in the middle of the bed, like on top of the bed? Like, what are you doing staring at a kid sleeping? If he's sleeping, you should be sleeping.
Right.
Whatever. So maybe 45 minutes later, I get a phone call. And my husband's like, oh, we're downstairs. I was like, downstairs in the emergency room? Yeah. He had brought Marcus to the emergency room. And then I'm calling like the doctors in the emergency room. I'm like, just eyeball him from the door. Do not let him like walk into the ER.
God.
Yeah, my son was totally fine. So
Yeah.
that happens. Like, you freak out about your own kid. And that's us kind of knowing, you don't really know anything when it's your own kid, but kind of knowing like the normal versus not normal or sick versus non, versus ill. But the sleep deprivation,
Yeah.
the just worrying,
It's
the
such a feeling.
yeah, the feeling, and they talk about maternal hormones, but like the dads get super
Yeah.
stressed too. I don't think we talk enough about like the
Yeah.
dads,
Yeah.
and especially the dads that have to, like, I used to work overnight every fourth night. So
Mm-hmm.
Ed would stay by himself with the baby overnight, and you know dads go through it too.
Right.
So
That's right. like I always say, like the difference of being a doula that's had a child versus not. It's not that I know what contractions feel like. I do, and they hurt. There you go. They hurt a lot. Okay,
A
that's it.
lot, like,
Hurts a lot. It hurts a lot. But what's different is I know what parenting feels like. You know what I mean? And that's really that you can't explain.
mhm,
So I have clients who have way different births than me that we still connect. You
100%.
know, it doesn't matter. Like I had a planned cesarean client. We still connect and talked all the time because it was tough and it was complicated. And I understand like the terror of worrying about your baby, you know?
Yeah. That's even if, you know, we were fortunate enough to have healthy babies. Like
Mhm.
then you bring in babies that have to go to the NICU, or you get
Yeah.
readmitted even for jaundice or whatever. Like having a baby in the hospital
Yeah.
or having a child, now that we've had, like, I've had years of experience of having my children go through different things, and luckily they're both pretty healthy, but there was a broken arm here and there that required
Yeah.
surgery. They're like,
It's awful. Like I've had my kids hospitalized and I saw I was the other side. Like I was the freaking out mom. And a
uh-huh.
doctor had to say, it's gonna be okay and calm me down. I'm like, oh, I'm on the other side. Like, huh?
Like,
And they're like, it's okay, this happens. I was like, oh,
I know. And you can't control it. And you can be the most rational, calm
yeah,
human being, and then you have kids and you're like, oh, I guess I was hiding all that crazy.
yeah, yeah. But I was like, I get it. I'm like, thank God there's these people like me who have seen this 1,000 times and can look at me, mom, it's okay. I was like,
Yeah.
thank you. And they were right, so yeah.
Well, and as a doula, having you when things don't go okay, when the baby does get admitted to the NICU or is born a
Happen.
little early or
Mhm.
whatever, having that support person that has, in addition to the doctors, obviously, or the staff in the NICU, but like having that other support person that you've built a relationship with throughout the pregnancy is super helpful. That's also like not your mom or your like
Yeah.
sister or
Yeah.
whoever, a non-family member that could be a little more partial
Right.
is
Sure.
super.
And I've had them. I've had a bunch of babies with complications that had to stay, it's really tough.
It's really hard.
But I've seen them recover and do really well. So I can feel confident. Like I know this is super tough. And I've seen this before. And
Babies are resilient. They are
yeah,
really, that's why I love what I do. Um, but it's hard as a parent. It's the hardest. It's
it
the hard.
looks scary. Like when I took neonatal resuscitation and they taught us this is the easiest of all. And I was coming in terrified. But then they're like, if a 50-year-old man isn't breathing, we're in big trouble.
Oh yeah.
We're in big trouble. Do CPR. It probably won't work, but try it anyway. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's like,
No,
just do it. He's gonna probably die. So I was like, but if you do it on a brand new baby, it's gonna probably work. It's gonna probably work. So I was like, okay, you know,
yeah. No, babies are awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was like, all right, so just that's what helps me be calm also. And even though resuscitation is not part of my job, but as a home birth assistant, it could be, which is why I took that. But it helped me be calmer because then I know what's happening.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
and
yeah,
you can save a life. I mean, you could really giving a couple of breaths, like the neonatal resuscitation part.
I have like helped them come to, like in a home birth, I helped them come to. I
Mhm.
also know like what's not to be as freaked out. I'm like, okay, his baby's floppy, but has great color, little things like that. Like it's not that bad.
Mhm.
It's not great,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Yeah, but having someone trained, and that feels comfortable in that situation,
Mm-hmm.
that's 95% of the battle. Because
Yeah,
many times, and this is what I teach in Latin America, like in under-resourced countries, and many
yeah,
times all that needs to be done is like warm, dry, stimulate the baby, and sometimes you just need to give a couple of breaths, with a
yeah,
mask. Um, And usually that gets the baby out of it.
It's not that bad. Like I had a client who gave birth home alone. Her birth went so fast. Okay. And I had to talk her through on the phone. I'm in the cab talking her through the birth. And when the baby came out, I didn't hear her cry. Yeah, I said, take a towel, sweep her mouth. And then we heard a cry. Like that was it.
Yep.
It was like amazing.
Sometimes they just need like just a little jump start.
That was, I'm like, sweep her mouth. And it was good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably just the stimulation, you know?
Yeah.
So, but no, this is so special, Maisha.
Thank you. Thanks for all the work you do, all my people in the hospital that help those that need a little extra help there to come to. And like it's okay whenever my clients go to a cesarean, I'm always like, it's okay if they don't cry immediately, and they probably won't.
Yeah.
And feel your feet on the floor, and we're in a hospital, and
Yeah. We'll get them crying on the
yeah.
pizza. Don't you worry.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming to talk to me.
All these years later.
I know. Oh yeah, one more question.
Yes.
So this is both for, parents who are pregnant, childbirth ed, and also doulas as well, who are in training or want to advance their skills. What advice do you have for someone who wants to become a doula, or who currently is, who's new? Like, what would you want them to know for coming
I
into?
mean, I just like really, if you have the time to like obviously get to know the family and sort of figure out early on, like what kinds of what kind of communication would like suit them the best, which is weird to say, but I think different people respond differently to things, and I think just maybe trying to figure that out from your client. It could be music, it could be just things that are figuring out what's going to be soothing and helpful in the birth scenario, and then just listening to not just the birthing parent, but the other partner that's in the, because you may be supporting the partner more than the birthing parent.
It's a lot. Partners, I enjoy them. Honestly, they're so fun. They're so deer in the headlights, and but they're cute.
Yeah. And don't, if you are a doula for a medical provider, never assume that they know what's going on or what, treat them just like anybody else, because odds are that they in that moment they are not going to know anything.
Oh, they sometimes have a harder time. Like I was a doula to a friend who was a doula, and I had to be like, stop being a doula. You know what I mean? I told her, stop trying to doula yourself and just be here. She was like telling her husband, do this, do that. I was like, Mm-hmm.
I think that would, and then just, stick with it. We need you.
Yeah. All right. Well, kiss the babies for me. Give a big hug to Ed for me, your whole family. You guys are amazing.
I will. It's so good to see your face.
Enjoy the South. I might come on down there because I'm tired of New York, but we'll see what happens.
If you're ever anywhere near North Carolina, you
Okay.
need to reach out and come stay with us. And you can try out
You.
for real. You're part
Okay.
of our family. That's the other thing you should tell your trainees. Like, you're gonna grow your family because you become part of all the families whose children you help bring into the world.
Definitely. I love my baby. My baby.
I know. Well, one day next time we're in New York, I would love for you to see Marcus.
I'd love to. I have a dream of being able to like get a space big enough to have everyone. Also, I think a lot of you would be such good friends. You know what I mean? Like I want to connect you guys, and it would be such a big space. It's been hundreds now, and I don't know where we'd fit. But yeah, I would love that if someone wants to spend $1 million and throw me that party. So yeah.
Maybe I'll pitch in.
I'd love that party. That'd be so fun.
That would be so fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Right.
take
Thank you.
care. And again, invitations open to
Thank
come
you.
down south a little bit.
Awesome. Have a great day, hon.
You
Bye.
too. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Bye-bye, sweetie.
Bye.